Welcome back to Mama's Talk Relationships. I'm Alessandra Martinet.
And I'm Lisa Miller.
Whether you're freshly separated, a seasoned single parent, or well on your way to happily ever after 2.0, we're here to share our experiences, expert insights, and a whole lot of laughter to help you rock this next chapter. Are you ready to dive into another episode about love, loss, and everything in between after divorce?
Let's do this. I'm ready.
All right, Miller. So, what is our topic today?
How to be a happy single mama. Are you a happy single mama?
I'm actually really happy, but
Yeah, oh,
I
but
wasn't always happy. It took work.
mm, yeah. So let's dive into what makes you happy now.
What makes me happy now? Well, the main reason why I'm happy is because I've seen that my kids are well adjusted and they're thriving and they're happy and they still feel a sense of family because my ex and I get along really well and we've come a really long way. So that gives
So
me a lot of happiness.
okay, but let's go backwards then. 'Cause
Okay.
you didn't always know that was going to be the case, and that's probably the biggest fear out there when thinking about getting divorced is, are my kids going to be okay? So we don't know in the beginning, and you don't know, your relationship with your ex always wasn't always what it is now.
No.
Uh, so if we go backwards and how do you be a single mom when you don't know that? Let's start there.
Okay, so the first step that I took was one, sought a lot of therapy. I
Yeah.
did the work. I got a lot of therapy, and that really got me in touch with the steps that I needed to take to get there.
Yeah,
You
I,
know,
I did the same. I actually
you became
hired
a
a
coach.
coach.
Yeah.
Well, I hired a coach before became a coach, and primarily just because therapy wasn't calling to me. I did a lot of therapy while I was married, trying to decide if I was going to stay or go. I was deep in therapy. Then we got separated before we got divorced, and I kind of didn't do anything, which I was starting to realize I was going down a really bad rabbit hole. And it
Hmm.
was oh gosh, I can't keep blaming everyone else. I'm the common denominator of my life. I need a way to help myself. And so I hired a coach who quite literally transformed my life.
Hmm.
And I was oh gosh, this is the missing piece that I didn't have. And so that's step one is healing yourself. If you can't fill your own cup internally, no one can fill it for you.
And one of the
Um,
biggest tools, and I'm sorry to cut you off like that, but one of the biggest tools that I learned in therapy and that I use all the time is boundaries. That was
yes.
such a crucial thing to learn and to instill in my even boundaries with my kids, boundaries with my ex, boundaries with my family. That has helped me tremendously throughout all of
So
this.
I'm gonna just add to that, which is I think the thing that most people miss is boundaries with yourself.
Very true.
I think, it's easy to look outside and be okay, I need boundaries with my ex. I need boundaries with my family, with his family, with my kids, my friends, all the things. But what we forget is we need boundaries with ourselves. What are we willing to negotiate with our own self happiness? And that's a huge, really powerful piece to this puzzle that is really important for people to really look at and get clear on and make sure you know what your own boundaries are. Because if you're crossing your own boundaries, you're not going to be able to put boundaries for other people.
This is true. So you mean setting realistic expectations for yourself? Is that how that does that go into boundaries a little bit? Because I found that I was being extremely hard on myself initially.
Absolutely. You have to get really clear. You have to give yourself a lot of grace when you're going through the biggest heartbreak of your life. Right. And we tend to let ourselves spiral and spiral and spiral. You have to set a boundary. Okay, I am okay being sad for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. And then I'm going to do something kind for myself. Give yourself the space to feel and to grieve and to have the emotion, but also give yourself a boundary and be I'm not going to sit in this for the rest of my life. I'm not going to sit in this all day. What that does for your mental capacity is
Hmm.
really hard on yourself, and only you have control over that, right? You only control you.
Yeah.
So it's really important to get clear on, all right, like what am I going to allow myself to, like how deep am I allowing myself to go? And at what
Hmm.
point am I like, all right, like enough? And also just like boundaries with like, hey, like it's really important to prioritize your self-care during this time. Like if you want to really be a happy single mom, self-care. So it's prioritizing enough rest, eating healthy, exercising regularly, finding time for activities you enjoy. There needs to be boundaries on all of that. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going
And
to go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry, but I think tying into the self-care is that as a mom, you feel so much guilt when
Yes.
you're like, it's time to go with dad. And it's a struggle internally.
At first.
That
At
at
first.
first, initially it was such a struggle. And now I'm like, how can I miss a baseball game? How can I miss a soccer game? And I would be like wearing myself so thin. But now I
Mhm.
take the time to myself because I realize that I can only be a good mom if I take care of myself first.
And that's also a boundary that you have placed for yourself. Boundaries get a bad rap, right? They're not a bad thing. They're really just being able to you're communicating how to show up for yourself, and you're allowing other people to know how to show up for you. You're telling them like, this is how I need you to show up for me. It's
Yeah.
not like I'm putting a boundary in place because you did something bad. That's
Mhm.
where people like get really scared, and it's like scary. It's they're not scary. They're really a beautiful, beautiful tool to deepen relationships and have really good clear communication, which I think
Mhm.
is also another key ingredient to being a single happy mom is good communication, not just with your ex, not just with your ex in-laws and whatever else, but your own family, your own friends. Like that's really important to be able to communicate clearly what you need, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. That will make a huge difference in your life as well.
Yes. I mean, going to communication, but it's for me, the way I communicate with my ex has really been something that I've worked really hard on because it's so important for my kids to see how well we communicate with one another, that they know that they cannot, like, because they're getting to their teenage years. So they
Mhm.
know that they can't play one against the other. They know that their mom and dad get along. So if something comes up and they're making a bad decision or if they've made a mistake, they know that they can't just say, oh, don't tell dad. Like, I'm going to
Yeah,
always tell dad.
right.
So,
Which I love, but that's not the case for every divorced family.
no, it's
There's a
not.
lot of divorced families out there that like the parents don't talk to each other. So I just want to highlight like yes, if you have that amicability between the two of you, like that's amazing, and definitely like lean into that and let the kids see that you guys have a good relationship so they don't play you guys against each other. But if you don't have that, like don't be like, "Oh my gosh, my life's over." It's not. It's just different. And
It's different.
you have to have stronger boundaries then. You're going to parent a little bit differently. It's going to be on you to make sure that your rules are really in place and you feel really strongly about them and good about them. So it's just a matter of seeing what you are the cards you're dealt. Some cards are better than others, and working with what you have.
Absolutely. It's not easy, and I get it. I just have a unique situation, and I'm
I mean,
very
I
careful.
have the same situation, like where I would say yours is better, but I mean, in my own life, like my ex and I, like we have group chats, text threads with our
We
kids.
do too.
If something goes on, like we have family meetings, like we really work together so my kids know they can't play us against each other, and like we're both fully in the know, and like that I think is what has really made my kids thrive through all this, and it hasn't been like, oh my gosh, like such a crazy horrible experience that they're gonna like need therapy from the rest of their life. I mean, let's be honest, like we're all screwing up our kids in one way or another, whether they're divorced or not. Because like the divorce part of it isn't what's gonna make send my kids to therapy.
No, absolutely, and I think another thing is to try to stay positive,
Absolutely.
and that was something I really worked on as well because like I've said in a previous podcast, I grew up around negativity and bitterness, and
Mhm.
I made the conscious decision that I had to let go of anything that happened. I didn't do it for my ex. I didn't do it for my kids. I did it for myself first
which
because
I love.
and I'm being honest. I did it for myself first because I didn't want to feel when you're bitter, it just is so hard to live like that. And everyone can sense it. And now it's impacted my kids in a positive way. And my relationship, I could have, with my ex, I could have been nasty given the
Yeah.
circumstances, but I made the choice.
And that's beautiful, right? But just I also want to highlight, like, be real and be true to yourself. Like, if you guys are feeling anger, if you're feeling sad, let yourself feel those emotions. Like, don't
Oh,
just run
yeah,
off.
I felt that. I
No,
absolutely felt that.
right. But like, don't just run off and be like, okay, I have to feel positive. Cause like, if you try to force it, that doesn't stick either. And
No,
I,
no, no.
I think a really, really important practice to take up when you're in the thick of everything is you're grateful. So wake up in the morning, find an accountability buddy, and go back and forth on what your three gratefuls are for the day and do something different every day. It can be big, it can be little, it can be like, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my kids, I'm grateful for food on the table. Or it could be as little as like, I'm grateful for clean sheets, I'm grateful for leftovers in my fridge, I'm grateful for, the sunshine. Like, it can range, but
Hmm.
the more you focus on, if you start your day with saying like, these are the three things I'm grateful for, your
I love
brain
that.
your brain will automatically start looking for things to be grateful for every day. And that puts you in a more positive mindset, especially when you're going through such a major transition, such a major heartbreak. It's so important to start training your brain to look for the positives and look for the gratefuls and look for the things that are good in your life, because there is good in your life. But like, when things are so dark, it's hard to see
Hmm.
that.
But I
You're
need to
pulling
be
yourself out.
No, understood, but I need to be clear to everyone that's listening. I wasn't always radiating positivity and sunshine. I was not like that, okay? It took me I did a lot of work, and I've been divorced 7 years now.
Hmm.
So it didn't
Yeah.
happen like I've been divorced 7 months. No. It took
Right.
a tremendous amount of work.
Sure, but it's like, it's two sides of the coin. It's like, it's a gentle, it's a long journey, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
we're showing both sides. In the beginning, it's going to be a lot harder to get yourself into the positive mindset. So just like sharing like little tricks that will help you, little tricks of, you're not going to be happy day one, and you
No,
shouldn't
no.
expect yourself to be. It's going to take some time, but these little things that we're sharing today will help you get through the storm so much faster.
But you know what another thing was that I realized that made me see things more positively was the quality time I got to spend with my kids, just the 3 of us, was
Mm,
incredible. It made us so much closer. We became like a little unit, and I'm sure you can relate that
mhm.
our relationship dynamic changed completely
Yeah,
once their dad wasn't there. Not that I mean, obviously, ultimately, everyone wants to stay in a healthy marriage, but considering all the circumstances, that was like a positive, like, we're close.
absolutely. There's silver linings and there's perks to being a single mom. Like, your relationship with your kids, if you choose it, can be so much stronger, and it's a different dynamic because there's not another adult in the house. So you're spending that time that you might be spending with your husband, you're spending it with your kids. So you're
Yep.
spending a whole lot more time with them and getting to know them on kind of a different level. And they're getting to know you on kind of a different level. And that can be really beautiful. I would also really recommend, if possible, to do one-on-one dates. If you have
Yes, love
if
that.
you yeah, if you have more than one child, like, giving them individual attention, especially in the beginning of your divorce, it's amazing experience for you and them.
It is a game changer. Like, I just went on a trip with my son for a week, and it was just the 2 of us visiting my dad, and I got to spend such quality time with him. It was amazing.
Yeah, and they open up and share different things with you, and your bond grows, and
And they're not
there's
fighting with the other sibling. Oh my gosh, because they
right.
love to do that.
Never. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, never. Oh, please.
Never. But yeah, I mean, I think this is like a really great starting point for if you're just starting out or if you're through the process and you're like, how, and feeling just really stuck still, these are some really, really amazing tips that I wish I had back in the day, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And another one that I can think of to like help you out is just celebrate your little wins in life. Like the
Yeah.
first time I did work around the house, like that my ex would have done, I was proud of myself, that showing myself that I'm capable of doing stuff that he used to do for me.
Yeah. And just like realizing you are so much, so much, so much stronger than you thought you were. And like, again, it goes back to you're grateful. It's like you could just be grateful for like, wow, like I didn't know I could do that and I did it. And you're like, damn, I'm
Yeah,
a badass. And
yeah,
and celebrate that and and be proud of who you are becoming because on the other side of all this, there is a beautiful, beautiful human that is like gonna be is waiting for you to meet that person and you're gonna be so excited because you're like, ah, like you're gonna be if you do the work and you lean in, there's so much beauty on the other side.
100%. You were so right.
Yeah. What other tips? Anything else?
Those are a couple of the highlights that I could think of.
All right, mamas. Well, we're nearing the end of another episode of Mamas Talk Relationships. As always, we want to thank you for joining us on this journey. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider leaving us a review and subscribing wherever you listen to on your podcast. Also, follow myself at lisamiller.coach on Instagram, and you can follow Alessandra at Mama's Guide to Divorce. And don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences in our online community. That's also, we'll put the link in the show notes so you guys can join. So much fun. We'd love to have you. And we'll be back next week with another insightful, informative, and hopefully entertaining episode on navigating dating and relationships after divorce. Until then, stay strong, mamas, stay positive, and keep on living.
Bye.
Bye.